The person you keep thinking about is not just randomly occupying your mind. There is a reason they keep showing up in your thoughts, even when everything between you feels uncertain, confusing, or incomplete. It is not happening because you are bored, lonely, or emotionally weak. Something deeper is active inside you, something that keeps this connection alive in your inner world in a way that is hard to ignore. They don't just appear when you are trying to think about them. They come in when your mind is quiet, when the world slows down, in those small pauses between thoughts, just before you fall asleep, or in those moments when you are relaxed and not trying to control your attention. And sometimes, even in the middle of an ordinary day, they suddenly appear without warning. You could be working, talking to someone, laughing, or fully focused on something else, and then something about them just surfaces. Their face, their voice, a memory, or a feeling connected to them shows up without effort. It feels natural, almost automatic, like your mind is being gently pulled in that direction. You may have tried to push these thoughts away many times. You may have told yourself it is time to move on, that thinking about them no longer helps you, and that it only brings confusion. You may have reminded yourself of the distance, the silence, or the lack of clarity between you. At times you may have even questioned yourself and wondered if you are holding on to something that is not really there. But despite all of that, they still return. Even when you feel like you are finally letting go, they come back quietly, without force. Even when you stay busy or try to distract yourself, something about them remains active in the background of your mind. This does not mean something is wrong with you. It does not mean you are stuck or unable to move forward. It simply means there is something in this connection that has not fully settled yet. Something emotional has been experienced between you, even if it was never clearly expressed, explained, or completed. Not all connections end in clean ways. Some of them leave open space, and the mind naturally keeps returning to what feels unfinished. These kinds of emotional bonds are not created only by logic or decision. They form through feeling, memory, and repeated emotional impact. And once something reaches you at that level, it does not disappear just because you decide it should. Willpower alone is not always enough to silence emotional attachment. When someone keeps appearing in your thoughts without effort, it often means there is still emotional energy connected to that experience. Something was felt deeply, even if it was never fully spoken. Something meaningful passed between you, even if it was never clearly defined. And yes, sometimes people can also think of you in return, even if they are not expressing it. Not every feeling becomes a message. Not every emotion turns into action. Some people stay silent with what they feel because they do not know how to handle it, or they are uncertain, overwhelmed, or afraid of what it might lead to. So they hold it inside for now. But silence does not always mean absence of feeling. You may notice moments during your day when a sudden emotion rises without explanation, a wave of warmth, sadness, or longing that seems to come from nowhere. You may feel connected to them even without contact, even without conversation. That kind of experience can feel confusing, but it often comes from emotional memory that is still active within you. This is not just imagination playing tricks. Deep emotional bonds can continue to influence thoughts and feelings long after communication stops. They don't follow simple timelines. They don't always obey distance. They exist quietly beneath awareness, shaping how you feel in unexpected moments. You are not weak for experiencing this. You are human. When something touches you deeply, it leaves a mark. And that mark does not disappear instantly just because you decide it should. The mind may try to move on quickly, but the heart often moves at its own pace. This does not mean you should stop your life or wait endlessly for clarity. It only means that what you felt was real to you, and it mattered. Confusion does not erase emotional truth. Silence does not cancel connection. Distance does not always mean absence of feeling. Sometimes distance simply reflects fear, uncertainty, or internal conflict on the other side. You may never get clear answers, or maybe one day things will become clear in a way you did not expect. Either way, your experience still holds meaning. The thoughts you have are not meaningless. The emotions you feel are not random. They are connected to something that once affected you deeply, and that impact is still settling inside you over time. If this person continues to live in your thoughts, it is because something between you has not fully reached closure. And closure does not always come from the outside. Sometimes it comes slowly from understanding, acceptance, and emotional processing within yourself. Be gentle with your thoughts instead of judging them. There is no need to force yourself to erase what still feels emotionally active. With time, clarity usually forms naturally when you allow yourself patience instead of pressure. Sometimes a connection is not only about staying forever. Sometimes it exists to shift something inside you, to teach you something about your emotions, your attachment, and your capacity to feel deeply. Even silence carries meaning, even distance carries history, and even confusion carries emotional truth underneath it. When someone keeps returning to your thoughts again and again, it usually means the emotional thread between you has not fully dissolved yet. Even if you no longer speak, even if life has moved forward on the surface, something inside still remembers. You may notice that you think of them during small moments of joy, wanting to share it with them, or during quiet moments, wondering how they are doing. It is not always about physical presence. Sometimes it is about emotional familiarity, about the place they held in your inner world. This kind of connection creates an imprint. And the mind revisits what feels unfinished because it naturally seeks meaning and resolution in experiences that carried emotional weight. If you still find them appearing in your thoughts like this, it is because a part of your story with them has not fully closed in your inner world yet. And that does not mean it has to continue the same way forever. It simply means it mattered more than your mind can easily let go of in a straight line. Not everything ends when we decide it should. Some things fade slowly through understanding, acceptance, and time. Love that feels distant, confusing, or not fully formed usually lives in the space between desire and fear. In that in-between place, feelings can be real and strong, yet still not fully expressed. One or both people may want closeness but also feel uncertain about what it would mean, what it could cost, or whether it would reopen old emotional wounds. Fear doesn't remove love, it slows it down. It creates hesitation where there is also longing. It builds silence where there is also feeling. So when you find yourself wondering why someone who seems emotionally important has not acted clearly or reached out, it is natural to question it. But emotions don't always translate into direct action in the way we expect. People can feel deeply and still remain still. Some carry emotional protection from past experiences that makes them careful. Others are dealing with inner conflict between what they want and what they believe is safe or possible right now. Some feel emotionally unready, even when their feelings are real, and some quietly believe they need to become better or more stable before they allow closeness to develop. This is why your mind keeps returning to them, especially in quiet moments. When distractions fade, what is unresolved emotionally tends to surface more clearly. At night or in stillness, your mind is no longer occupied with daily noise, so thoughts that carry emotional weight naturally rise again. It is not something forced. It simply happens. What is important to understand is that these thoughts are not just about the other person. They are also connected to a version of you that existed when the connection felt alive and meaningful. Certain people awaken parts of us that feel more open, more emotionally present, or more alive than usual. When that access feels interrupted or uncertain, the mind often returns to it. That is why the feeling can be stronger than simple attraction. It is not only about them, it is also about what they represented emotionally within your experience. Distance between two people who care is not always proof of absence. Sometimes it is proof of timing, emotional readiness, or internal struggle. There can be a genuine pull on both sides, but still no movement forward because something inside one or both people is not aligned yet. This is also why emotions can feel inconsistent. One day you feel detached or calm about it, and the next day a small trigger brings everything back with intensity. That shift is normal. It reflects the difference between your conscious thinking mind and your deeper emotional responses, which do not always move in sync. Healing does not require forcing yourself to erase what you feel. It comes from understanding why the connection has stayed active in your mind and what it is revealing about your emotional patterns, needs, and boundaries. Sometimes these connections remain because something between you is still emotionally unresolved. Sometimes they remain because communication never fully reached clarity. And sometimes they remain because both people are still developing in ways that could eventually bring understanding, even if the timing is not aligned right now. Emotional timing is rarely equal between two people. One person may feel ready while the other is still processing fear, uncertainty, or past emotional experiences. And from the outside, that can look like silence or inaction, even when feeling still exists underneath. What is often overlooked is that love does not always express itself through movement. Sometimes it exists quietly in hesitation, in reflection, in restraint, or in waiting for the right emotional moment. But regardless of what the other person feels or does, the most important part of this experience is what it brings out in you. It may be teaching patience. It may be revealing where you attach meaning. It may be showing you what kind of emotional availability you actually need, or it may be guiding you toward clarity, whether that leads to understanding, closure, or continuation. You are not weak for thinking about someone repeatedly. You are responding to emotional significance that your mind has not fully processed yet. The heart does not always let go just because logic asks it to. If there is distance right now, it does not automatically mean the bond is meaningless. It may simply mean that something in the timing, the circumstances, or the emotional readiness on either side is not fully aligned yet. At the same time, clarity does not always come from waiting. Sometimes it comes from noticing what a connection is doing to your inner state over time and whether it is supporting your growth or keeping you emotionally suspended. Allow the thoughts to exist without forcing them away or over-interpreting them. Notice the emotions that come with them: calm, sadness, warmth, longing, uncertainty, because each one reflects something your inner world is trying to process. And remember this: something meant for you does not require you to abandon yourself in the process. It may ask for patience, but not self-neglect. It may involve emotional depth, but not constant confusion that never settles. Whether this connection eventually becomes clear and mutual or gradually fades into understanding and release, it is still shaping you. And sometimes the meaning of a connection is not only in where it leads, but in how it changes you along the way. When you find yourself thinking about someone again and again, to the point where they stay in your mind from the moment you wake up until the day slowly comes to an end, it can start to feel like something deeper is happening beneath the surface of ordinary life. It does not always feel like a simple thought anymore. It feels more like a presence that keeps returning on its own, without effort, without permission, and without any clear reason that the mind can fully explain. And in many situations like this, there is also a quiet sense that they might be thinking about you too, even if nothing is said, even if there is no message, no confirmation, and no clear expression of it from their side. Not because it can be proven in a simple way, but because the emotional intensity on your side makes it feel like something mutual might exist underneath the silence. Love, in reality, is not always loud or obvious. It does not always show itself through confident action, clear communication, or direct movement toward each other. Sometimes it exists in a much quieter form where nothing is fully spoken, but something is still deeply felt. It can exist in pauses, in distance, in hesitation, and in the space where words were never fully able to form. It can live in silence without disappearing. It can exist in patience without being visible. It can remain present while someone is still trying to understand what they feel or how to handle it. It can even exist in situations where the timing does not feel right, or where life circumstances make it difficult for someone to step forward in a clear way. The person you keep thinking about may genuinely carry feelings for you, but still not be in a place where they can act on those feelings, and that difference between feeling and readiness is something many people struggle to understand. Feeling something strongly does not automatically mean someone knows what to do with it, or how to move forward in a stable way. A person can care deeply, even in a way that feels meaningful and real inside them, and still hesitate when it comes to action. They may question themselves constantly. They may feel unsure about their own stability. their emotional balance, or their ability to handle something as significant as a real connection. They may also look at you and feel a sense of pressure, not because you are demanding anything, but because what they feel makes you important to them. Sometimes they may even believe they are not enough in some way. Not enough emotionally, not enough financially, not enough mentally prepared, or simply not in the right stage of life. And that belief alone can make someone hold back, even when the emotional pull is strong. Past experiences also quietly shape this kind of behavior. Old emotional wounds, unresolved pain from previous relationships, betrayal, disappointment or abandonment can all remain stored in the background of someone's emotional memory. Even if they are not consciously thinking about those experiences every day, those memories can still influence how they respond to new feelings. So when something new and meaningful begins to form, those older layers of pain can rise silently in the background. They can create hesitation where there is also desire. They can create caution where there is also attraction. And they can create distance even when there is emotional closeness internally. Because of this inner conflict, instead of moving forward openly, a person may begin to slow down. Instead of expressing everything clearly, they may become quiet. Instead of taking emotional risks, they may choose restraint, not because what they feel is small or unimportant, but because what they feel is strong enough to feel overwhelming. When emotions are light or casual, people tend to act quickly. There is less fear, less overthinking, and less internal resistance. But when emotions run deeper, everything becomes more serious inside the mind. The same person starts thinking about consequences, timing, emotional safety, and possible outcomes that could come from moving too fast. Fear and responsibility begin to sit alongside emotion, and sometimes they become louder than emotion itself. This creates an internal split. On one side, there is attraction, care, and emotional pull toward you. On the other side, there is doubt, fear, uncertainty, and over-analysis of what a real connection could mean in practical life. That internal tension can easily turn into distance on the outside, not because something is missing, but because too many things are happening internally at the same time. Many of the questions they carry are not rooted in lack of feeling. In fact, they often come from feeling too much. They may wonder if they are capable of giving you what you deserve emotionally. They may fear that they will repeat past mistakes. They may question whether they are truly ready for something serious or stable. They may also worry about consequences they cannot fully predict. What if things go wrong later? What if they hurt you? What if they get too attached and lose control of their own emotions? What if they cannot maintain the kind of connection they believe you deserve? So distance becomes a kind of protection. Not necessarily protection from you as a person, but protection from the intensity of their own emotional response. Stepping back feels safer than stepping forward into something that feels too emotionally charged or uncertain. In that state, silence can feel easier than vulnerability. Distance can feel more controlled than closeness, and emotional restraint can feel like the only way to avoid making mistakes they are not ready to deal with. But one of the most misunderstood parts of this experience is that distance does not always mean absence of feeling. From the outside, it can look like nothing is happening. It can look like detachment or disinterest, but internally, the emotional experience can still be very active. This is where confusion often begins on your side, because when someone matters deeply to you, their absence does not feel neutral. It feels like something is unresolved. It creates questions. It creates reflection. It creates emotional searching for meaning in silence. You may begin to wonder if what you felt was real or imagined. You may question whether the connection had meaning or whether you attached significance to something that was not mutual. These thoughts are natural when clarity is missing, especially when emotions were once strong. But emotional connections do not always follow clear or consistent patterns. Sometimes they appear as inconsistency, sometimes as hesitation, sometimes as emotional distance that does not match what seems to be felt underneath. Human emotions are not always organized in a way that is easy to interpret. The person on the other side may also be experiencing their own private struggle. Thoughts of you may come to them unexpectedly during quiet moments. Memories may return without warning, A sense of connection may appear and then quickly be followed by withdrawal as fear or uncertainty interrupts it. This creates a cycle of emotional movement where they feel pulled in and then pulled back out again. Over time, this can become mentally tiring for them. It can also lead them to believe they need to become more emotionally stable, more prepared, or more ready before they allow themselves to move closer. It is as if they are waiting to become a different version of themselves before they feel safe enough to act on what they feel now. So they wait, not because nothing exists, but because they believe waiting protects them from losing something they are not ready to risk losing or damaging through uncertainty. However, emotions that are held back do not simply disappear. They remain active in the background. They influence thoughts, reactions, and memories even without expression. Emotional attachment does not require constant communication to continue existing within someone. At the same time, your experience of this absence can feel even stronger. Because emotional sensitivity makes silence feel noticeable. When you are attuned to someone, even small shifts in energy, attention, or communication can feel meaningful. Silence becomes something you feel rather than something you simply observe. You notice the absence. You feel the difference, and your mind naturally keeps returning to that person in an attempt to understand what has not yet been made clear. Still, some connections are not easily erased simply because communication slows down or becomes uncertain. Some bonds remain active in memory and emotion because they carry significance that has not fully settled inside you yet. Over time, these experiences do not remain in the same form. They shift, they soften, they transform through understanding, acceptance, distance, or sometimes reconnection. In other cases, they gradually move toward release. But in both outcomes, they leave an impact that shapes how you understand attachment and emotional closeness. What matters most is not forcing certainty where it is not available yet, but recognizing what this experience is revealing about your emotional world. It shows how deeply you can feel, how strongly you attach meaning, and how much emotional space certain people occupy in your inner life. And even when something feels unclear, unstable, or unresolved, it can still carry emotional truth, because real emotional experiences are not defined only by clarity. They are also defined by impact, by depth, and by what they awaken inside you.